You knew this was coming, Pete. Oh, yeah, you knew Film Theory was going to come out one of these. I've been waiting for it. All right, so we got from Film Theory, Matt, Pat, and the gang, 3 new Spider-Man No Way Home theories. When I say I've been waiting, I've talked with one of the editors. Like, when's Matt Pat going to come in? He didn't give me a heads up, you son of a bee. Let's do this.
Be careful what you wish for, Parker.
Hello, Peter. All right, anyone see anything new this time?
There's a black cat on the wall at 56 seconds. Could be a Felicia Hardy clue, you know, the black cat.
I think we noticed that around pass number 246.
Then no.
Maybe we do another round at 0.75% speed.
You ever wonder whether we're starting to miss the forest for the trees on these things?
You mean apart from being in a video production bunker all day and thus seeing neither forests nor trees?
No. I mean, like, sure, there are Easter eggs in the trailers that get paid off later, but I mean, really, how deep does the rabbit hole truly go? Are they really thinking this hard, planning all this out, or is it just us speculating, grasping at straws, just looking for the next little detail that we can desperately cling to in order to claim another 15 minutes of relevance? Are we just wasting our lives watching the Spider-Man trailer 300 times to pick apart every last detail?
What's today's date again?
August 23rd? Why?
I just gotta say, that was probably the funniest intro that I think they have done so far. Holy crap. That is pretty much everyone on the internet who does Spider-Man No Way Home videos. And I just love the attention detail, just how exhausted and tired he looks the whole time. Yeah, that's some great commentary. Great commentary. This is gonna be a good one.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that knows you'll always find your way home to our like and subscribe button. Speaking of likes, holy cow, did people like that Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. In 24 hours, the thing amassed a total of 355 million views, annihilating the previous record holder, Avengers Endgame, with its mere 298 million. And it's not hard to see why. A new Spider-Man sequel isn't a pedigree by itself. It's not a prequel about a character who's already died. It's not an origin story for a character no one's ever heard of. It's not whatever Eternals is trying to be, which, gotta be honest, they're at the final trailer stage and I still don't see any semblance of a story there. None of those things. Instead, it's the payoff to one of cinema's greatest, most recent cliffhanger, starring the most beloved Marvel superhero of all time. That alone has gotta get people more excited than Tim Burton in a Spirit Halloween store. Then, add to that a potential multiversal crossover with resurrected pre-Disney villains and classic Spider-Man, and yeah, you got something that's gonna make Thanos' numbers look like chump change. You know that if Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are actually in this thing, one moment of them doing the Spider-Man point at each other and the internet will melt. Literally just pull up and melt on the floor.
It'll be the greatest missed opportunity if they don't do it. Even if it's not in the actual movie, but if they do it like in a mid-credit scene or a post-credit scene, let's say they have one of those mid-credits, post-credits that's just like kind of funny and not really a setup, you gotta do it. You just have to do it. You know you have to.
You got it. That's the only piece of fan service I expect.
Here's the other thing everyone in the blogosphere is forgetting. Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah, that's also a Sony property. Spoiler alert, there's absolutely a 100% chance that Miles Morales and a Spider-Verse reference will appear in this movie. What I'm really hoping for here is that there's a fully animated segment within this film, but either way, you don't just waste this chance to promote your other massive Spider-Man property about multiversal crossovers within this movie about Spider-Man and multiversal crossovers. Anyway, now that we've all seen it, or I guess I shouldn't say all, but again, 355 million people in 24 hours is about as close to all as we get in terms of unifying experiences. Outside, of course, like the planet exploding or I don't know, the McRib coming back. A lot of us have also noticed that something feels kind of off about what's actually happening within this trailer. Like, why would a fugitive Peter Parker wanted for murder actually go back to his high school? Why is it snowing indoors? Why is Doctor Strange lying to Wong about a dangerous spell? And when did Flash Thompson get that dye job? It's not so much that the apparent sequence of events don't make sense, it's that the actions of the people making them don't seem to align with how we necessarily expect them to act. Something is going on here.
Exactly
there are already a ton of interesting theories circulating. Is Doctor Strange being manipulated? Is he a variant from another universe? Is this some kind of It's a Wonderful Life fake wish fulfillment dream scenario to teach Peter a lesson about why he's wrong to turn to magic to solve his problems? Or is this the evil Doctor Strange from episode 4 of What If, who is also secretly Mephisto?
Break it down, Matt Pat.
I love all these theories. I think all of them are actually hitting pretty close to the truth, and we'll talk about them all here in a minute, but I've also got a theory that looks just a little bit further. My spider sense tells me No Way Home isn't just a huge Spider-Man sequel, it's also setting up yet another Spider-Man reboot. Okay, so for this theory to make any sense, we first need to talk about the essence of
Interesting.
trailers. I mean, do you even know why they're called trailers? They're shown in front of movies after all, so what's the deal?
They used to be in
obviously
back
the whole
of
business of
movies.
advertising movies has changed a lot over the years. Back in the really early pre-television days when going to the movies was an all-day event, studios would show 2 of their movies in a row back-to-back with the lower budget, less well-known one going first. This was the origin of the term B-movie.
Bees have never been afraid to change the world. I mean, what about B. Columbus? B. Gandhi? Jesus?
Previous attractions then came after this B-reel.
B-movie
AKA they were
love.
trailing the preceding show, hence the term trailers. But their goal has and will always be selling the audience on the next big upcoming movie. And the one technique that's proven more effective than any other is building a sense of mystery. No joke, we think of this as a fairly recent trend, but check out this old trailer from the movie Psycho, where the director Alfred Hitchcock just walks you around the set and makes everything into a cliffhanger.
A quiet little motel, perfectly harmless looking, when in fact it has now become the scene of the crime. Oh, by the way, this picture has great significance.
Oh, you tease.
Corpse.
You tease.
It goes on like this for 6 minutes. Nowadays, things are a little bit fancier than this, with digital editing allowing studios to fake entire scenes just to get that trailer narrative that they want. In the trailers for Infinity War, they created a team shot with the Hulk that was never in the movie. They changed the number of the stones in the Infinity Gauntlet so people wouldn't know which order the scenes took place in. I mean, sure, this fight on the train from the No Way Home trailer looks like Spidey's fighting Doctor Strange, but maybe they're both fighting someone who hasn't been added to the finished FX yet. Heck, is that even Doctor Strange? Mordo is still at large. He dresses pretty much like Strange does, so it wouldn't be that tough of an edit to deep fake out. Same thing with this woman who awkwardly looks pasted in there and doesn't move. It could be some Spidey sense slowdown effect, or maybe this is just a stand-in pasted in over someone who might have been an actual spoiler. The point is, well, yeah, Doctor Strange.
How crazy would that be?
That'd be- I mean,
I
feel like so many of these shots have to be tampered with.
Want more context? In reality, we don't have any context for any of this. It just feels like we do because the trailer's editing did a great job using a story structure to sell a micro narrative about the general premise, or as much of the premise as they want us to be aware of right now. I can practically guarantee you that Doctor Strange's line about the dangers of messing with the multiverse comes from probably the final minutes of the movie. What we do know is that Peter's secret identity was revealed at the end of Far From Home. It's messing up his life and the lives of his loved ones, and so he's asking Doctor Strange to mind wipe the planet. And if you know your Spider-Man comics, well, that premise is gonna make you sit bolt upright. Pretty much the exact plot of one of the most controversial Spider-Man story arcs of all time. One More Day.
I have a feeling I know where he's going with this. I'm just going to try to make a prediction upon Matt Pat's prediction. Let's see if I end up completely wrong. Okay, he's talking about like another reboot. Now, I've been hearing rumors circulating that they are gearing up for trying to go for another Sinister Six movie. Again, not the Drew Goddard one, but a different one. I know a few people who believe they might have like an actual Spider-Man 4 already in development with the 3 Spider-Men, but especially with referencing One More Day. One More Day was used because, I'm forgetting the editor-in-chief at the time. My God, you guys know it. Tell me down below. He thought like we need to reboot Spider-Man, and One More Day had severe backlash in terms of how they retconned so many things. But a big part of the motive to do it was to reboot Spider-Man once again. So to be borrowing from One More Day, that a lot of these references that you're seeing in the trailer alone, I could see how a reboot would line up considering that they are borrowed from it. The suspicious part is like it's already going so well, so maybe perhaps they're going into the path of a reboot because Sony's seeing all this potential with Spider-Man. They just renamed it to like the Sony Spider-Man universe, so I think they're trying to get to a point where they can just have Tom Holland Spider-Man back to themselves and they could do whatever they want with him and not be so much MCU associated. So that's why I think a reboot might be in the works, if that's what Matt Pat's getting at. We'll see.
Originally published in 2007, One More Day was part of the aftermath of Civil War's storyline, where, just like it appears appeared in the movies, the team fights over whether superheroes should have to register themselves in order to protect the public. In the comics, heroes who initially supported Iron Man's pro-registration team had to publicly reveal their secret identities as part of the agreement. So Peter being on Team Stark is something that he almost immediately regrets. And that, my friends, is why you always have to read the fine print. And since every villain now knew how to find Spider-Man, Aunt May catches a bullet from a hitman, lapsing into a fatal coma brought on by her injuries. And, you know, probably being like 1,000 years old at this point. After going to everyone he knows to try and fix it, including Doctor Strange, he gets hit up by someone who says that they can help Mephisto, aka the Devil, who offers to infernal magic Aunt May back to life provided Peter allows him to erase the other thing Spider-Man loves the most, the entire history of his marriage to Mary Jane Watson. Something which, wouldn't you know it, Marvel's editors at the time had also been trying unsuccessfully to erase for over a decade. Spider-Man says yes, and he and Mary Jane are allowed to be together for one more day.
That's the name of the movie.
And then Peter wakes up in a rebooted world.
That was a nice surprise.
Which was a thing for a while. And yeah, this story is one of the reasons why so many people are always looking for Mephisto to show up. This time, with No Way Home, well, yeah, the Mephisto theories really seem to fit. The broad strokes of the story work.
I just gotta say, I just love it when big YouTubers we follow reference other big YouTubers who we watch regularly.
When's that next pitch meeting collab, Matt Pat?
Where's that comment, the crossover we didn't know we needed?
The broad strokes of the story work. Peter wants the world to forget his identity. He makes a deal with a magic user. Chaos ensues. Then, of course, you have the smaller details, like the guy holding up the devil horns caricature of Peter Parker in the protest scene with the text that reads "Devil in Disguise." I mean, that's not even trying to hide it. At this point, I think that Marvel knows that every trailer they release needs a Mephisto Easter egg. And not only that, but this theory would also explain all the weird stuff happening with Doctor Strange in the trailer. You see, in episode 4 of Marvel's What If, we're introduced to an alternate version of Doctor Strange, nicknamed Armani.
Come this way. Sorcerer Armani.
And labeled in the subtitles as Strange Supreme. In this episode, he attempts to use the Time Stone to save his love Christine, who, in this timeline, died in the accident that broke Strange's hands from the original MCU. We're told that the moment of her death is called an absolute point, something that cannot be changed because doing so would create a paradox.
Her death is an absolute point in time.
Absolute.
Unchangeable.
His transformation at this point is, fairly demonic. Some would even go so far as to call him the devil. Eventually, he becomes powerful enough to shatter the absolute point. Except, there's one problem. Like breaking a load-bearing beam in a house, demolishing that moment in time causes the universe to collapse around him. As Strange Supreme struggles to keep the universe intact, the very fabric of reality crushes him into a small purple gem.
What a great
now,
episode.
I bet you're thinking,
So
what,
good.
Matt Pat? This sounds like a complete story. Alternate universe Doctor Strange destroyed his own universe out of arrogance. Story closed, right?
Complete
Well, maybe
tragedy.
not right, theorists. For one, we hear this line at the end of the Spider-Man trailer.
Be careful what you wish for, Parker.
It's a warning that would believably come from a Doctor Strange who just wished to have his love back and sacrificed his soul and entire universe to get it, only for that to backfire horribly. Also, notice how No Way Home's Doctor Strange still wears the Eye of Agamotto, something that, I don't know, Thanos destroyed back in Infinity War? Now, who has an intact version of that charm? Strange Supreme in What If? And the similarities just keep going. Wong, in the What If episode, gives a warning that Strange immediately ignores, pretty much paralleling the exact same scene in the Spider-Man trailer.
Yeah.
I'm going to start the kettle. I suggest you join me before you do something reckless.
What I've been saying, and I said this a lot in the Trailer Talk live stream, that maybe we might see 2 Doctor Stranges in this movie. Maybe the one we have been looking at is Strange Supreme this whole time, or maybe we are with just regular Doctor Strange, and then Strange Supreme comes into the fold. We know that Doctor Strange has the capability of containing the Spider-Man villains, at least that's what's been reported on a lot, in some type of prison that he has, so maybe he has Strange Supreme in some kind of prison or something like that. But I don't know what it would be. Bottom line, what I'm trying to say is that I feel like it's probable that we could see 2 Doctor Stranges in this movie, one being the one from the What If, and then one being the one that we already know.
Maybe they have the gem somewhere in the sanctum or whatever.
And at the end of What If, Strange Supreme cries out to Uatu the Watcher to do something, showing that this version of Strange is powerful enough to see and talk to an interdimensional being. But Uatu claims that he can't help the guy because doing so would endanger all other universes. This proves that if Armani escaped his purple gem prison, he would have the knowledge and ability and motive to tamper with the very fabric of reality. Exactly what Strange is doing in the No Way Home trailer. And all of it is without even going into how having a demonic Doctor Strange fill the role of Mephisto would help introduce the character while also circumventing China's heavy censorship around the devil and occult, something that we talked extensively about in a previous WandaVision episode, linked right meow. So this has gotta be it, right? The devil himself, Mephisto, finally steps out from the MCU shadows, set up in an alternate timeline presented in What If to sow chaos, launch Spider-Man into a multiversal war against his greatest enemies, and what exactly? You see, that's the problem with the whole Strange isn't himself theory train that I've been seeing going around. It's too complicated. Spider-Man is too mainstream of a character and too important of a franchise to get bogged down with things having to be set up in a Disney Plus series. The offshoot franchises have to be in service of the movies, not vice versa. We can't set up a multiverse and multiple enemies and multiple Spider-Men and also Doctor Strange actually being the devil all in this one movie. It is just way too much. Plus, you don't even have to go that far. There's a better fit for this story found in the comics. One that doesn't require Mephisto, and one that, quite honestly, more closely follows what we see happening in the trailer. I don't know why no one's brought this one up in public discourse yet, but the clear parallel to the story in No Way Home isn't One More Day, it's the story's follow-up, the lesser-known One Moment in Time. Now, people don't tend to know this one because One More Day was so unpopular that a lot of fans refuse to acknowledge anything that came after it in the timeline. But stop me for a minute if any of these plot points sound familiar. After Peter Parker's identity gets out, his family and loved ones are suddenly put into danger, and he goes not to Mephisto, but rather to Doctor Strange for help, asking Strange to erase the world's memories of his identity as Spider-Man. To quote from the comic, "I blew it, Strange. I put my family in the crosshairs. I need the world to forget that I'm Spider-Man." Strange then disappears to think it through, just like in these shots from the trailer. After consulting with Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man, Doctor Strange agrees. He creates a protective bubble for Peter to be shielded from the spell and starts his magic. And oh wait, wouldn't you know it, Peter starts having second thoughts, regrets his decision, and
This is it right here.
Which in turn causes chaos. So to recap, we've got ourselves Peter asking Doctor Strange to do a memory scrub and then changing his mind mid-abracadabra because he's torn about losing his loved ones. Sounds like we might have found ourselves the real source of this story. In the end, Mary Jane is like, "You should have let me forget too," and TLDR, the lesson is that Peter needed to grow up and not rely on magic to solve his problems. To quote from the story, "I should have listened to Doc Strange when he told me there were a lot of things he could do with his magic, but I didn't, and he was right. In the end, I just needed to grow up and face the inevitable," which to me sounds exactly like the moral of a Spider-Man growing up and becoming an adult story like we have with Tom Holland in No Way Home. And to get there, you know, he just needs to hop between a few different universes to talk to older, wiser Spider-Men who've been in his shoes before.
I mean, I feel like Matt Pat hit the nail on the head there. The whole thing about Moment in Time being the one that it's drawing mainly from. One More Day was significantly more popular because of what it represented in the comic book zeitgeist at the time for the medium. The amount of discussion around it, the amount of discourse around it, was a big part of why that comic was so massive. I'm not familiar with Moment in Time, to be honest. Like One More Day, but Moment in Time, I'm not. To be seeing that parallel, I'm like, oh wait, this parallel seems to line up in what happens in One More Day. It's kind of similar setups for sure, especially with there being like what he brings up here, with there being a thematic Spider-Man lesson, and then also if you're bringing in the other Spider-Man to learn the wisdom from them, like have this Peter who is growing up having to deal with the consequences and realize it's just a part of becoming an adult with your identity exposed. I think that's a much better parallel to draw, and especially because Spider-Man generally is this character who, has a secret identity if you're just within the Spider-Man context, but he's thrusted into the MCU world where so many of our superheroes' identity is known to the public. It's huge because he's a teenager and he wants to protect people. I get it, but with this Spider-Man being in the MCU, I don't think the consequences of him having his identity out there is as massive because of the fact that we've already got so many superheroes whose identity is already known to the public. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the major difference is just that he lives a more street level life, so it's
he's a
easier.
kid.
To him, it's easier easier to access him or whatever. But if he had Tony Stark money, he could live in a safe place where probably this wouldn't matter very much.
I don't get why he doesn't have Tony Stark money. He's able to build these awesome web shooters. He should be able to have enough money. Yeah.
Hey,
that was actually a point that Tobey Maguire brought up a long time ago about why he didn't like the idea of web shooters, because he's like, why would he need to do photography if he's that inventive?
He could just be a professional inventor, scientist, engineer, and make way more money.
But wait, there's one final universe that we've neglected to mention in this entire theory, and that's ours. And this is where the reboot stuff comes in. You see, the world seems to have forgotten that Disney and Sony still have an awkward step-parent relationship with Spider-Man. Sure, Disney may have convinced Sony to give him streaming rights to Spider-Man through 2026, but what about the other deal? The one where Sony still owns the movie rights to all of Spider-Man, but they co-produce the main ones with Marvel Studios so they can be in the MCU. As far as anyone's saying publicly, that's apparently still set to expire when Tom Holland's current contract for this solo movie, as well as one more yet unknown Marvel appearance, are concluded. Which means one thing, it's quickly becoming renegotiation time, and that means there's always a chance that Sony decides to take its web-covered ball and go home. Which brings us to our other theory today. Whatever happens in Spider-Man No Way Home, whichever other villains show up, whichever other Spider-Man appear, by whatever means Wanda Maximoff zaps in during the post-credit scene to set us up for the Multiverse of Madness, the story is going to wrap up in such a way that while there can be a path forward for Tom Holland's Peter Parker, he can also be soft rebooted as a different Peter Parker, or heck, a different Spider-Man like Miles Morales, if and when things between Disney and Sony don't go well. I mean, you think it's just a coincidence they chose to go all in on a premise that's based on two comic storylines that literally were created to reboot the character? Consider this. Peter says that he wants the world to forget that Mysterio revealed his identity, but immediately interrupts the spell to preserve certain memories for certain people. It's clear that what he really wants is the opposite of that famous Uncle Ben line, to have the power of being Spider-Man without the responsibility that comes with it. He wants to be Spider-Man, but also wants personal connections that aren't put at risk, just like Peter did in One Moment in Time, and also in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, and also again in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Tom Holland in this movie is gonna have to learn that you can't have it both ways. He's gonna have to make a choice.
Problem is you trying to live two different lives. The longer you do it, the more dangerous it becomes.
He'll have to give up one part or the other of his double life. And the thing about that is basically any decision he makes in that scenario in any direction completely upends the Spider-Man status quo. Staying as Spider-Man and memory wiping everyone, well, that turns every character relationship into a clean slate. Moving forward as Spider-Man without a memory wipe, he's gonna have to distance himself from his loved ones because they're now in danger. Giving up the mask entirely to someone else so he can live a normal life with his loved ones? Yeah, that's big reboot time. I'm sure you all can think of more than that, but what all those scenarios have in common is that they're open-ended and reboot ready if Sony or Disney start having second thoughts about the joint custody agreement. The bottom line is this: in order for this story to conclude in a satisfying, impactful, definitive way that also leaves the franchise able to proceed, Spider-Man himself is going to be the one who can't go back to the way things were, whose only choices will be to go forward into a radically changed world. In the end, it's Peter who'll truly have no way home. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.
That was awesome.
Damn, dude, that was comprehensive, yeah.
Obviously, we follow so many theories and stuff like that, that some of it is a hodgepodge of things that we've heard before, but he also brings up a lot of excellent points that we've already touched on. I think you really hit the nail on the head, though, One Moment in Time. But guys, subscribe to Film Theory if you haven't done so already. They hit 10 million subs. I'm really happy for them. To get them to 11 million. Subscribe to Real Rejects, click that notification bell, hit that like button. Thanks so much for being here, and hey, we'll catch you guys soon.